They say the greatest tragedies happen in slow motion, a gradual collapse you only notice when you're already under the rubble. Mine, however, wasn't like that. Mine happened at the speed of a notification lighting up a phone screen in a restaurant that was far too expensive on the night of our 10th wedding anniversary. In that instant, between the main course and the dessert that would never arrive, I didn't see the end of a marriage. I saw, with a clarity that was almost painful, the exact beginning of my life. There was a time when I believed that love was a form of unconditional surrender. I was an expert at giving myself away. I gave my time, my energy, my peace of mind. I was the understanding partner, the solid rock upon which he could build his dreams, his projects, his excuses. I prided myself on my ability to understand. I understood the long nights at the office, the last-minute business trips, his need for his own space. I became an architect of justifications, building bridges over chasms of distrust that my intuition insisted on digging. If stories like this resonate with you and you believe in the power of transformation, give this video a like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Our financial dynamic was a perfect reflection of that surrender. He, with his air of protector, handled the big investments, the important decisions that would secure our future. I, the reliable partner, handled the day-to-day, the small bills, the groceries, the maintenance of our seemingly perfect life. He called it an efficient partnership. Looking back, I call it a masterpiece of control engineering. Every decision I made needed a veiled approval. Every expense was subtly monitored. He didn't need to be a tyrant. He simply created a system where I voluntarily ceded my power, believing I was being cared for. I believed love was about sharing everything. Today, I understand that math only works when respect and transparency are also divided equally. Without that, it's not addition, it's a constant subtraction from your autonomy. The signs. Oh, the signs. They don't arrive like thunderclaps, but like whispers, and I was a master at silencing them. It started with little things. The phone, which used to be left lying around the house, suddenly had a fixed spot, face down on any surface. The passwords, which we once shared as proof of trust, were changed to new, more secure ones, he said, to protect us from the outside world. Little did I know that the greatest threat to our security was sitting next to me on the couch every night. Then came the financial inconsistencies. They were cash withdrawals, always in amounts that didn't raise immediate suspicion. For office expenses, he'd explained with a patient smile, it's just easier this way. A new expensive watch appeared on his wrist, a gift he'd bought himself, a bonus the company had paid out but which I had never heard about. The emotional distance grew in direct proportion to the mysteries on the banking statement. I'd feel a chill down my spine every time I opened the banking app, a feeling that the numbers weren't telling the whole story. But I convinced myself it was all in my head. Stress, fatigue. I was being suspicious, unfair. I clung to the image of the man I loved, refusing to see the stranger he was becoming. I remember a Saturday afternoon, a few months before the end. A credit card bill arrived, and on it, a charge for a luxury hotel in a city he had never mentioned he needed to travel to. My heart stopped. I took a deep breath, gathered all the courage I had, and confronted him. I showed him the paper, my hands trembling slightly. He looked at me, not with anger, but with such a well-acted disappointment that for a moment I felt ashamed of myself. He laughed, a tired laugh. He explained that he had booked the hotel for an important client as a favor and that the reimbursement was already on its way. He accused me, in the softest, most wounded voice he could muster, of not trusting him after all these years. He said my stress was making me see things, create ghosts. And I, desperate to believe in peace, accepted the explanation. I felt a sick sense of relief when he hugged me and said everything was okay. Intuition is the immune system of the soul. And I had spent years taking powerful emotional suppressants to avoid feeling the infection that was already taking over our entire system. I wanted him to be the right man so badly that I was willing to be completely wrong about everything. If you're feeling the tension of this story, if you've ever felt this way, support our channel with a like and subscribe to keep discovering how to take back control. The night of our 10th anniversary. The restaurant was one of those places that exist to be photographed. Low light, candles, the soft sound of a piano in the background. We were celebrating a decade of life together. He seemed relaxed, charming, the perfect husband all our friends envied. He ordered the most expensive wine on the list, made a toast to the next 10 years, and looked at me with eyes that, for a long time, I believed held the universe. In the middle of the conversation, he stood up to take an important work call and stepped away from the table. And he left his phone. Face up. It was a rookie mistake, a lapse in his meticulous performance. The screen lit up with a new message. Her name wasn't a disguise, it was her name. And the message preview wasn't a declaration of love, which might have broken me. It was something much worse. It was a plan. Just a few visible words. Did you get the money? We can make the down payment on our apartment next week. The world didn't fall silent. On the contrary, suddenly I could hear everything with a terrifying clarity. The clinking of silverware from the next table, the laugh of a woman 2 tables away, the exact melody the pianist was playing. And inside me, a deep and absolute silence. There were no tears, there was no rage. There was only a sharp, cutting clarity, like a diamond. The shock wasn't discovering the affair. It was understanding in a single second the depth of my own denial. Trauma is not just what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you when you realize you allowed it to happen. And inside me, an old, rusted key finally turned. The woman who forgave everything, who understood everything, who shrank herself to fit into lies. She died right there, sitting in front of a plate of saffron risotto. And in her place, a strategist was born. He hadn't returned to the table yet. I had little time. My first instinct, the one conditioned by years of submission, was to grab the phone and confront him, to make a scene, to demand the truth. But the new woman who had just been born in me knew that an emotional reaction was exactly what he would expect. It would be my hysteria against his calm. It would be my word against his. And I would lose, again. True strength isn't about shouting the loudest. It's about moving the pieces on the board in silence, while your opponent still thinks they're winning the game. With steady hands, I slipped my own phone out of my purse, keeping it under the white linen tablecloth. My fingers had never been so nimble. I opened the banking app. The password, which he didn't know, was typed in an instant. The balance of our joint account appeared on the screen. A considerable sum, the fruit of years of work, savings, dreams that I was now discovering were not shared. With 3 taps, I transferred exactly 50% of that amount to my personal account, an account I had secretly opened months before in a rare moment of clarity, which had been empty until then. It was my emergency fund, and the emergency had arrived. Next, I opened the cards tab. With 2 more taps, I froze all the credit cards associated with the account. His, mine, the additional ones. One by one, I deactivated them. Every tap on the screen was an act of liberation. Every digital action was a brick I was laying in the wall I was building around my dignity. When I looked up, he was walking back, smiling, oblivious to the silent revolution that had just taken place under the table. He sat down and continued the conversation where he had left off, talking about a trip we could take, about the future. And I participated. I smiled, I agreed, I asked questions. I played the part of the loving wife for 10 more minutes, the longest and most powerful 10 minutes of my life. I was no longer acting for him. I was acting for myself, savoring the knowledge of what was to come. Finally, with the utmost naturalness, I said, "I'm a little tired. I think I'll skip dessert tonight. Shall we get the check?" He agreed, a little surprised by my sudden lack of appetite for sweets. The waiter brought the small leather folder. He opened it, took out his black credit card, and handed it over. I watched every move. The waiter returned a few minutes later with an embarrassed expression. "Sir, I'm sorry, but your card was declined." I saw the confusion on his face. "Impossible," he said, laughing awkwardly. "Try it again." The waiter tried. "Declined again, sir." He took another card from his wallet, an additional card from the same account. "Try this one." The result was the same. Panic began to creep into his eyes. That look of superiority he always had was dissolving, giving way to a raw vulnerability I had never seen. It was then that I acted. Calmly, I took my own card from a different account and placed it on the table. "Don't worry," I told the waiter. "I'll pay for my half." Then I turned my gaze to him. The silence at the table was heavy. In the firmest, most serene voice I've ever had, I said, "I saw the message, the one about the apartment." He went pale. "The accounts are frozen. Our lawyer, or rather, my lawyer, will call you tomorrow morning. Enjoy the rest of your night." I stood up from the chair. My legs didn't tremble. My spine was straight. I left cash on the table to cover my meal and the tip. I didn't look back as I walked towards the exit, past couples who were laughing and toasting. I wasn't running away. I was marching toward myself. The night air had never felt so fresh, so clean. Every step on the pavement was an affirmation. I hadn't lost a husband. I hadn't lost a future. I had reclaimed myself. That dinner didn't cost me a marriage. It bought me back my freedom. Today, my life is unrecognizable. I live in a smaller, simpler place, but every object here was chosen by me. Every bill is paid by me. The silence in my home isn't lonely, it's peaceful. It's the sound of my autonomy. And on this journey, I've learned a few universal truths that have become my pillars. The first lesson is that your financial intuition is as vital as your emotional intuition. If something feels wrong with the money in a relationship, it's not about the numbers, it's about trust. A financial imbalance is almost always a symptom of a much deeper power imbalance. Pay attention to that. The second lesson is that financial independence is not an act of distrust. It is the greatest act of self-love you can practice. Having your own reserve, your emergency fund, isn't planning for the end. It's ensuring that no matter what happens, you will always have the means to protect yourself and start over. It is your personal life vest in a sea that sometimes turns stormy without warning. And the third and perhaps most important lesson, you teach people how to treat you. For years, I had taught that my boundaries were flexible, that my peace was negotiable. That night, I finally taught the most important class of all, the class on consequences. Rebuilding yourself after a betrayal seems impossible, I know. It feels like a piece of you has been stolen. But the truth is, nothing that is truly yours can ever be taken away. If you feel trapped, if you feel your voice has been silenced, remember that the power to change your entire life can be in the palm of your hand, in a silent decision, in a tap on a phone screen. Getting back up isn't easy, but I promise you, it is the best and most valuable acquisition you will ever make in your entire life. If these lessons have brought you value, the best way to show it is by liking this video and subscribing to the channel to join our community. If you believe that self-love and financial independence are the best assets anyone can build, write in the comments below, "I am my best investment," because you are. And if you want more stories about turning pain into power, about rewriting your own ending, subscribe to the channel. Because every great love story, especially the one we have with ourselves, is at its core a spectacular story of rediscovery.